Dear African Jewish Congress colleagues and family, welcome to you and welcome also to the Small Jewish Communities Association of South Africa, friends from all over the country. We are really delighted to see you all and glad that you can join us for this last day of Chanukah get together. It's amazing that we're on the 8th candle and that the time has already gone. The time flies all the time. I always think that Chanukah is a very easy Chag festival because there are not too many restrictive rituals to take care of. There are some, but it's not quite as daunting as some of our Yomim Tovim can be. There are rules. There are rules for how and when the candle should be lit. There are rules for repeating the story, resume of the story of the Maccabees several times a day in the normal statutory services. And of course, we say Hallel as often as we can during Chanukah because we are obliged to give thanks and praise to the Almighty for having rescued the Maccabees and for having to help them restore the temple to holiness. So it's relaxed. It's a relaxed festival. And that's how we should take this evening, to be like that also. Of course, you all know that the most important thing in everybody's mind about Chanukah is the traditional food and how we eat fried foods because we honor the idea that olive oil, which was then used in most cooking, was the oil that was pure enough to be used in the temple. And so that's why it's fried. But I have another thought about this. I think that Chanukah food was the start of what we today call fast food. Think about it. Here were these guerrilla fighters at the bottom of the mountains and in the valleys, and the women folk who were providing the food were up there on the top of the mountains, waiting for them to come quickly for a little bite to eat as soon as they could. How could they do it? There was not going to be time for men who were in a hurry to light fires and cook bread, bake bread and roast meat. It wasn't going to be possible. So they kept the fires burning. And when the men came up, the quickest thing to do was to put oil in the pans, take the bread dough, which was already prepared, and pop it in the pan. And there you had the donuts that we know all about. So I do believe that our traditional Chanukah food is actually based not only on the holiness of the oil, but also on the time allowed for eating. Not a very easy situation it was. Some were thinking, must have been, in a Jewish community, there must have been many, many different opinions. There were some who believed totally in the restoration of the temple and the cleansing of it and putting back the oil. Some of them were fighting for freedom of religion in general. Maybe not have been so practical, but they did believe in freedom of belief. And many of them must have been trying to preserve their traditions, their family traditions. That's all very familiar to us, that we as Jewish communities all have different aspects of the way we regard how we tackle our Judaism. And I think that's extremely important. And particularly for the African Jewish Congress and the Small Jewish Communities Association, we know that we have varied beliefs, varied ideas, varied concerns, and we are no different from communities that went before us. And I think that's also a thing to be remembered for Chanukah. Exactly what we in the African Jewish Congress and SJCA do, wherever we are, we fight to preserve tradition, we cement our relationships, we create friendships, we give one another mutual support. Often the people with whom we practice our connections, we cement our connections in the smaller communities are not necessarily Jewish. We do a lot of good interfaith connection in the way in which we are to work. So not to be forgotten. I want to thank you all for coming to join this celebration tonight and for continuing in the way in which you preserve your communities through flying the flag of Jewish identity. We all need to remember that everybody's Jewish identity is different. Some of us have that identity from a religious belief, from tradition, from family support, from nationality, from love for the state of Israel. We all have something different. But those of us who are taking part tonight in this lovely celebration, we know it's to keep our Jewish identity strong wherever we are. And I thank you for being with us also. And now it's my very great pleasure to pass this baton on to Rabbi Moshe Silverhaft.
All the South Africans, now you know where the Fetkud comes from. And allow me to practically and publicly thank you for the magnificent leadership that you have displayed of the African Jewish Congress since 2014, for your understanding and handling of both communal and, in fact, all aspects of our organization, from writing letters to heads of states to chasing me up on my work. Thank you very much and bless you. Good evening, everyone that has joined us here this evening for our Chanukah of Unity event. Allow me to introduce Johnny Amwells, President of the Greater Plettenberg Bay Hebrew Congregation. The involvement of the Country Communities Department and now the SJCA with Plettenberg Bay goes back to 1995, when we were involved in arranging the first Yom Kippur service in Plettenberg Bay and establishing the congregation there formally, to assisting financially with the purchase of the current shul from funds donated from the Uteneg Hebrew congregation, which was closing down at the time. Interesting, when all the other congregations, or when many of the congregations were closing, Plet required a new cemetery of their own. And in April 2008, we consecrated a piece of land. And today, I can't say fortunately or unfortunately, but there are over 40 Jewish graves in Plettenberg Bay in their cemetery. Johnny and Stacy, let me publicly thank you for always welcoming me, for always being cooperative, for always working as a team for the betterment and for the benefit of your congregation. Johnny, over to you.
Thank you, Rabbi, and good evening, everybody. Before I begin, I would just personally like to thank the Rabbi Moshe Silverhaft, for holding our hands and carrying us through some very troubling times, through good times and through bad times. He has been a beacon. He's been our front man, our spearhead, and everything that we have accomplished, we've accomplished side by side with Rabbi Moshe Silverhaft. His dedication to the country communities, unless you are a country community, you fail to understand just how big a job it is. And to this we owe him an immense debt of gratitude for his participation, his encouragement, and his continual commitment to country communities. And we look forward to many, many more years together. Thank you. This little shul, built in around about 2008, is without a doubt one of the most unique shuls, not only in South Africa, but I guess all around the world. We go from a current population of about 40 Jews to anything upward of 200-300 over season and Chagim. The Jewish growth in Plettenberg Bay certainly hit its peak in about 2008-2009. In those days we were about 120 Jews who lived here permanently, and sadly that number is a diminishing scale and not an escalating scale. It's making it very, very tough, to maintain the shul and keep the doors open and the lights on. And we as the current custodians of the shul take an immense amount of appreciation, we take an immense amount of satisfaction, and it truthfully is an honor to be part of the current custodians of the shul to hand over to those that come after us. This community would certainly not be where it is today had we not been based in Plettenberg Bay. Our one factor, which kind of separates us from all the other country communities, is that geographically we are truthfully one of the most beautiful regions in the world. And we know that no matter how quiet or how desperate it gets through the year, we do know that the end of the year is coming. It's with that in mind that we are now approaching the end of the year. It's the 8th day of Chanukkah, something in which we as the local community take pleasure in opening the doors and inviting you all to be with us. And may these lights fill your homes, fill your lives with a promise, with a hope of a good future. A future where, please God, one day COVID will not be the first thing on anybody's mind. And may you all join us as I call upon Joshua and Marcus to come and light the 8th candle of Chanukah. Thank you.
Happy Chanukah, welcome, welcome. We're now going to say the prophets over the candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvo yaseh, v'tzivonu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Hanei Salonu Anaknu Maliki, Hanei Salonu Anaknu Maliki, Alanisi, Alan Floyd, Alan Tishuois, Alan Milfomois, Sheosi Sala, Poise, Sheosisa, Laviseno, Miami, 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 Maznanaze, Mastur Yeshua, Silechana, Elishameya, Si, Esterila, Si, Veshanto, Evan, Esabeya, Liestarimanameya, Mitzaranameya, Azimoy, Reshir, Mizmor, Chanukah, Samizbeya, Azimoy, Reshir, Mizmor, Chanukah, Samizbeya. Everyone will join in. A big crowd favorite for Chanukah. Chanukah, come live in the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. And around the table, we'll give you a treat, a dreidel to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night they share a street light to remind us of days long ago. Chanukah, we're light in the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. That around the table we'll give you a treat, a dreidel to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. Friday from Chanukah.
Thanks, Josh, for that magnificent Chanukah candle ceremony. I knew that you'd be a great success. We spent, Josh traveled to Plet for the month of Tishrei, where he conducted all the services, and I was invited to be the rabbi in residence for Yom Kippur. And Josh, you are great. You've done a great job, and I know that over December, while you'll be in Plet, not only will you be running the religious services, but you'll also be running the kosher catering out of the shul house. And I encourage everybody to visit the shul house, order your food from the kosher caterer at the shul house. And Josh, once again, to you and your family, kol hakavod to you. And I'm sorry that I wasn't with you there this evening and with the Plet community. But with regards the sinkhole at the George Airport and the rain, etc., it wasn't viable for me to get there. So again, yesher koach to you and to Johnny and to Stacy and to everybody. I'm now delighted to introduce the chairman of the SJCA, the Small Jewish Communities Association, Barney Horowitz, who's also the chairman of the Kimberley, Griqualand West Hebrew Congregation. Barney, together with his committee, Ann Harris, Selwyn Plitt of Vereeniging, Ava Gelvin of Grahamstown, and Mayor Gelbart, the treasurer, they, with great dedication, have launched and are keeping functioning the newly established Small Jewish Communities Association. We are now in year 2, and thank God, with the support of the people that I mentioned, our small committee, we are being quite successful, thank God. Barney, you too are in your way in Kimberley, keeping the flag of Yiddishkeit flying high. You have a magnificent shul, and I want to tell all those that are watching that next year, August, is 120 years of the opening of the Kimberley Shul, and there will be a weekend of activities. We're not sure which weekend, but we will notify everybody in due course. Over to you, Barney.
Good evening, everyone. To everyone in Plettenberg Bay and around Africa and around the world. I'm Barney Horowitz. When we think of Chanukah, we think of candles. When we think of Shabbat, we think of candles. The Shabbat candles are candles lit on Friday evening before sunset to usher in the Shabbat. Hanukkah candles, on the other hand, are lit after sunset. There is a subtle difference, and I suspect the reason is that the purpose of the Chanukkah flame is to banish the darkness and to illuminate the material realm, thus reflecting how in the darkest moments God can appear and bring hope and light. This is borne out by the legend of the miracle of Chanukkah, which took place in a time of darkness when the Greeks, who had conquered the land of Israel, sought to impose their culture upon its inhabitants. Despite their military might, the Maccabees were able to instill in the Jewish people a spirit of mesirus nefesh, or self-sacrifice, and teshuvah, return to God, which inspired them to fight the Greeks, defeat them, and rededicate the Beis HaMikdash. These themes are ever present, and in this year of the COVID-19 pandemic, when it is estimated that up to 250,000 Jews worldwide have died, we are in darkness, and we do need the light of the Chanukkah candle to instill in us the spirit of self-sacrifice and return to God, to inspire us to fight the pandemic, defeat it, and to rededicate our communities to the service of Hashem and each other. At times like these, we need to stand as one community and to take our full share of complying with all the protocols that we know will slow the spread of the disease, and to pray to God to deal mercifully with us and to spare our homes from this horror and the sorrow and loss accompanying it, in the same way that he spared our ancestors in Egypt from the ultimate plague, the death of the firstborn. Thank you all, and I wish you and yours, wherever you may be on the African continent and around the world, a hearty Chanukah Sameach. Thank you.
Owen Griffiths, my friend, is the president of the Island Hebrew Congregation, Mauritius. Owen, from the first time that we met, I was inspired by your dedication to, first of all, preserve the history, the Jewish history, from the Second World War in Mauritius, the island of Mauritius, and also to establish and maintain a Jewish community, a Hebrew congregation on the island. In cooperation and in association with the African Jewish Congress, we have been involved in upgrading the St. Martin's Jewish Cemetery, which contains 128 graves of Jewish people that were sent there during the Second World War. And over the years, we have upgraded their graves, recorded more accurate history on the various tombstones that were damaged by cyclones, etc., to being involved in the establishment of a museum on the island, recording the history of the Second World War Jewish presence. This museum is visited by most of the high schools around the country, because most Mauritians aren't aware that there was a Jewish presence going back to 1940. As I mentioned, also, Owen is the president of the Island Hebrew Congregation, which is the local Hebrew congregation on the island, which maintains Judaism, which maintains the Jewish presence, and he liaises very closely with the Honorary Consul for Israel on matters related to Israel and Mauritius. Thank you, Owen, for your continued cooperation, support. Over to you.
Good evening, Rabbi Moshe, and good evening to everyone from the African Jewish Congress, and to all the attendees of what I guess is a new normal for a Hanukkah event, alas. So on behalf of the Island Hebrew Congregation here in Mauritius, I want to wish you all a very happy Hanukkah, a very happy event this evening. Keep well, keep safe, Hag Sameach.
Besides being a magnificent carpenter, specifically working with Rhodesian teak wood, Yossi Kabli, together with Arnold Joffe of the Harare Hebrew Congregation and Philip Hassan of the Sephardi Hebrew Congregation, which interestingly enough has just celebrated their 90th anniversary, administer all religious affairs related to the Jewish presence and Jewish communities in Harare. I feel I must mention his wife Gwyneth, who is the president of the Sharon School, which was once a fully Jewish school, but now has no Jewish children. But nevertheless, the parents request and continue to request that the Jewish ethos and principles continue to be taught and enforced. Thank you and bless you, Gwyneth. Also, thank you for the very healthy meals that you give me when I visit Harare, which I enjoy very much. Over to you, Yossi.
Thank you, Rabbi Moshe, and good evening to all who are joining us tonight on this Chanukah of Unity event. As I earlier read the text referring to Chanukah in the Amidah in Tfilat Shmona Esrei, and I'm quoting, "You delivered the strong into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few." I couldn't help but think and make the comparison between the few in the Chanukah story and the few of us in the small Jewish communities in this region. Reflecting the theme of this Chanukah celebration, I believe the lesson to be learned from this is that unity is what matters. Together, we will have the strength we all need to face the challenges ahead of our communities. With this thought, I wish you all a Chag Sameach and enjoy this festival of Chanukah. Thank you.
Thank you, Yossi. Ohad and his lovely wife, Karina Schwartz, are the only Torah-observant family in Lusaka, and all religious activities revolve around their home. From High Holy Days, Yamim Noraim, to building a sukkah, to Purim, to assisting with Tahara. This all happens with their efforts. Ohad, you are an inspiration to me. You've come from Israel a number of years ago, and you've just fitted in so well with your family and your sons and your wife into the community, and you have taken a leadership role, leadership position of Torah and Derech Eretz, and for that, I bless you and I thank you. Karina, I got to thank you for all the yummy meals that I have and enjoy when I visit your home in Lusaka. They definitely have a Sephardi unique taste, which I thoroughly enjoy. Thank you very much, and once again, bless you. Over to you, Ohad.
Shalom, Rabbi Moshe, and thank you very much for organizing this amazing event of Chanukah of Unity. And good evening, everyone who has joined us, wherever you are. Happy Chanukah.
Happy Chanukah.
Chanukah Sameach. We want to wish it to you from here, from Zambia, from Lusaka. Have a happy Chanukah wherever you are, and let's remember that מעט מן האור דוחה הרבה מן החושך. A bit of light can chase a lot of darkness. So let's hope that the same as we lighting the menorah, the Chanukkah this year, the same that our good deeds, our mitzvot and maasim tovim, the lights that we are lighting around the year will chase all the darkness that around us. Happy Chanukah from Zambia, each one of you.
Chag Sameach.
Yael Tidar, my friends, has taken over as head of the Eswatini Jewish community from our dear friend, the late Jeffra Machodi, who passed away. Yael, we are encouraged by your positive energy, your inclusive rather than exclusive manner in which you deal with communal affairs. I recall just very shortly after you took over the leadership of the Jewish community, a very prominent member of the community, John Merkin, passed away from corona, and it was necessary to open a grave at the new Jewish cemetery in Eswatini, Swaziland, and you kicked into action and you made sure from allocating a grave to having it open to making sure that a tahara was done, which we guided you through over the phone because of the corona restrictions. You stepped in and arranged absolutely everything. You arranged the Chanukah event. Anything we ever need to be arranged or to be attended to, we know one phone call to you, one message to you, and it happens. We look forward to seeing you soon at our conference, Please God, in January. Over to you, Yael.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you very much. And good evening, everybody from Eswatini. I am so happy to be part of this Chanukah of Unity event. You know, Chanukah is about light, about chasing darkness away. I don't know if you guys know the Israeli song, Banu Choshech Legaresh, we came to chase the darkness. And as little kids, we're standing there all enthusiastic, holding our candles and singing, Surah Choshech Hal Ashcho, move away darkness, move away blackness, stamping our feet on the ground with a loud noise. You know, Chanukah is challenges us to be the soldiers of light. And for me, that is probably the central message of this holiday at all. Kol echad hu or katan vekulanu or eitan. Everybody is a small light, but together we are a very strong light. And you know, the Jewish community of Eswatini is very small and very few lights, but we shine far, you know. Tony and Bernard's have a candles factory, Swazi candles. Their candles are lit all over the world. Gili, he's got a startup, Israeli startup, drip irrigation startup called Endrip. They have a department here, the design department. And from here, plants going all over Africa and all over the world to help farmers with more sustainable and friendly irrigation. Look at the Turjuman's family, been here for generations. They're Matan Baseter. Sometimes it's in the light and sometimes in the setter. We have Stephanie, who works on economic and social development. Michelle is here to head the CDC. The Friedlander legacy, the Friedland family legacy is still shine far. And Kirsch Foundation is now funding the Israel Aid, is an Israeli organization that helps the Ministry of Health with the vaccine campaign and strategy. And it's all funded by Kirsch. Me, I work with youth after high school. I help them at the beginning of their career, trying to break the cycle of poverty for them. You know, everyone is a small light, and together we shine far. And you know, the news lately, just shedding a huge shadow of darkness upon us. More regulations, more, you know, new variants, things we can't do, global warming, temperatures, storms, hail, floods. You know, sometimes you just sit and say, this is overwhelming. What can I do? I'm just a small light. But that's the whole thing. Just a small light to get vaccinated, just a small light to put a mask on, just a small light that recycle plastic, reuse bags. You know, just as we do our little things, together we can chase the darkness. I think so. So I wish all of you light and love from Eswatini.
Thank you, Yael. Joshua Lapar, my friends, is the president of the Bulawayo Hebrew congregation. He's an outstanding and reliable communal leader who we're all comfortable with. He's ably assisted by Raymond Roth, who happens to be in Australia at the moment, who looks after the Chevra Kadisha, the Jewish cemetery in Bulawayo, which is in the most immaculate condition and inspirational the way it's looked after. Coming back to Joshua, in a meeting that I accompanied one of the Israeli ambassadors to State House to meet the current president, Mnangagwa, he said to us that we, the Zimbabweans, took a garden and made it a desert. You, the Jews, took a desert and made it a garden, referring to Israel. Joshua, you took a desert and made it a garden. Thank you and bless you and your family. Over to you.
Happy Chanukah to you all. On behalf of the Bulawayo Hebrew congregation, my family and myself, I take this opportunity to wish you all a Chag Sameach. May the light given out by the lighting of the Chanukah candles over the 8 days unite all the Jewry around the world as one. This symbolic lighting is a uniting factor and sends a message to the world that the Jewish people are still united as one. The smaller communities of Jews, like ourselves, are the sparks around the world that give rise to great tolerance and understanding of Jews in general, but also give out the contra to the negative propaganda about Israel to those that we live with. We are proud of our history of Judah Maccabee and the Maccabees in the time of the Greek domination of our homeland and their attempts to diminish our belief in our Torah. We are still the few in number, but we are no longer the weaker. We in the diaspora hold our heads up high with the ever-growing esteem in the fields of science, technology, medicine, agriculture, and humanitarian assistance by our homeland Israel, land of the Maccabees, the land of the brave and strong. May your Chanukah candle shine bright and strong and bring us all together as one. Chag Sameach.
Samuel Levy, my friend, is the head of the Chonen Dalim Jewish community of Maputo, Mozambique. Sam, together with his wonderful wife Lauren, almost single-handedly run or administer their local Jewish community. They welcome local friends of the Jewish community to participate in various communal activities, resulting in building a great bridge between local members and members of the Jewish community. Bless you for this, for your vision, for your insight, for your foresight. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Rabbi, and good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Levy of Chonen Dalim, the Jewish community of Mozambique. Our community dates back to the late 19th century, when Maputo was called Lourenço Marques and was the main commercial port for the Transvaal gold trade. Our synagogue, completed in 1926, was built at the suggestion of Rabbi J.H. Hertz of the Hertz Chumash, who galvanized the community to action on a visit during the Boer War. So we're going back well over 100 years, 120 to 140 years of community history. And we're deeply grateful for our connection with the African Jewish Congress, all the moral and practical support we get as one of the small communities in the dispersion of Southern Africa. And we hope that one day you'll visit us here and enjoy the really uplifting experience of davening in a combination of Hebrew, Portuguese, and English, our Nusach Maputo, in our simple one-room shul. So Hanukkah is a beautiful holiday, and for lots of reasons. There are inspiring symbols, there are games at which even amateurs like me can win, and there's fried food and the excuse that you need to eat it, okay? But in Maputo in particular, there's also something else that's particularly special about Hanukkah. It reminds us that Jewish life is not about numbers. That a small group, true to its identity, is more powerful than all the forces of conformism and cynicism that can be thrown at it. And for all that Hanukkah is a halacha light holiday, the very act of lighting the candles that we declare are special, sacred candles, is a deeply spiritual statement that we are here. We are Jews, we are faithful to our Torah and to the legacy of our ancestors. And that small numbers and challenging circumstances notwithstanding, Od lo adva tikvatenu. Chanukah Sameach para sua família e a sua comunidade, da nossa comunidade, to your family and your community, from our community in Maputo, Mozambique. Thank you. Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Sam. The Windhoek Hebrew congregation in Namibia is led by Nochem Gorelik and a small team of dedicated members. Somebody asked me to describe Nachum, and I describe him as somebody that is deeply Jewish in his upbringing, in his thinking, together with, as I said, a number of dedicated members. He keeps the light of Torah and Judaism alive in Namibia. Now, Nachum and I regularly are in contact about matters relating to the community, which he cares about so deeply. Over to you, Nachum.
Thank you, Rabbi, and good evening to everyone that has joined us on this wonderful occasion of the Chanukah of Unity. Chag Sameach to all of you, and it is indeed a great pleasure for me and an honor to, on behalf of the Windhoek Hebrew congregation, wish everyone a sincere and a happy festival of Chanukah, and may the glow of the candles that we all light and participate in keep burning bright for all of the year, for all of us, your families, and very far beyond. It is a pleasure being with you in Plettenberg Bay, although virtual, and we stand together holding hands in this common and very joyous festival, and we sincerely hope that everyone has all the mazel and all the good fortune and hope for today and the future. I wish you all again Chag Chanukah Sameach.
My dear friends, the African Jewish Congress is affiliated to the World Jewish Congress. And we know that it's a great benefit to us to have a big daddy sitting in America. And our liaison is a gentleman by the name of Andras. He's the Deputy Director of Community Relations. And we contacted him, and he has brought us a message from the President of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald Lauder. Over to you, Andras.
Thank you, Rabbi, and good evening, everyone. From Budapest, from Drumbach Synagogue. I wish you all a very happy Chanukah from this very special place. This synagogue, that has been built 150 years ago, symbolizes for me the unity and the hope that Chanukah is all symbolizing for us. The synagogue that has been damaged during the Second World War by a bomb attack have not been used since then, up until this summer when it was inaugurated again. This synagogue is not only a place for worship, but it also hosts cultural and educational events, and also hosts civil society organizations, including the World Jewish Congress office. In the summer, when this synagogue was inaugurated, President of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald S. Lauder, said, "The synagogue is also symbolizing unity and hope to the community and the good partnership between all." With that, I would like to deliver the message of Ronald S. Lauder to you for celebrating Chanukah. Dear friends, I'm pleased to extend to all in the World Jewish Congress family my warmest wishes for a happy Chanukah. Chanukah is about miracles. Not only the jug of oil burning for 8 days rather than one, but also the victory of the Maccabees in preserving Jewish national and religious identity. When COVID-19 vaccines were introduced, it felt like a miracle had occurred. It offered us hope that the light at the end of the dark tunnel of the pandemic was approaching. And indeed, the vaccines and other measures taken have saved countless lives. However, unfortunately, the virus has not yet been eradicated, and many of our brothers and sisters around the world are still facing new waves of infection. But our spirit of Jewish unity prevails, and we are all here to support one another through these ongoing difficulties. May this holiday bring you and your families good health, happiness, and peace, and may our Chanukiah illuminate the path to brighter days ahead. Chanukah Sameach, Ronald S. Lauder, President of the World Jewish Congress. And I also wish you Hanukkah Sameach from this beautiful place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andras, all the way from Budapest. I've been to that shul and it's absolutely magnificent. And we congratulate and compliment the World Jewish Congress for all their efforts and their support of and recognition of the African Jewish Congress. So that brings the end to our messages from our various affiliates around Africa and around the world. And I want to thank everybody for their meaningful messages. Yes, it is essential to remember that it's not the numbers, it's the quality, not the quantity that counts. And every Jew has a position and a role to play, to be a Kiddush Hashem, to behave correctly so that people don't turn around and point fingers at the Jews in their various small communities. Before I deliver my concluding message, I would just like to say that if anybody would have any comments, you're most welcome to type them, and our team are watching for any comments that you want us to attend to. Also to remember that we are very active on Facebook. We have 3 pages. One is Rav Moshe Silberhaft, one is African Jewish Congress, and one is Small Jewish Communities Association. And it's almost virtual in the sense that when we travel to our various communities, undertaking our responsibilities, we post live updates. I want to also mention that we sent out over 150 Chanukkah kits into the country this year, into South Africa. And thank you for the many, many pictures of you and your kids or yourselves lighting the Chanukkah candles. It's a great honor to be able to participate with you in the simcha and mitzvah. But for you all, it's a mitzvah. I explain to people that when you live in Johannesburg, in the bigger center, to go to Shirim and to attend shuls, etc., shtiblach, etc., that for them, for people, is their deep commitment. But for people in the country communities, a Jewish calendar, a yortzeit candle. We were very fortunate this year to secure 1,000 yortzeit candles in honor of 3 donors donating them in honor of their parents, deceased parents. And if anybody would like yortzeit candles in the country communities, we do distribute them free of charge. And bless them for that. That is Yiddishkeit for a lot of people, is to remember the yortzeit, to have a candle, and to light the Chanukah candles. My dear friends, we know that the miracles of Chanukah, what are the miracles of Chanukah? The military victory of the Maccabees against the Greeks, and the miracle of oil that should have lasted 1 day, but burnt for 8 days. But there was a third miracle not many people are aware of. It took place several centuries later. After the destruction of the Second Temple, many rabbis were convinced that Chanukah should be abolished. After all, it celebrated the rededication of the temple, and the temple was no more. It had been destroyed by the Romans under Titus, and without a temple, why was it necessary to celebrate? And the Talmud tells us that in at least one town in Israel, in Lod, Chanukah was actually abolished. Yet eventually the other view prevailed, which is why Chanukah is still continues to be celebrated today. The question is why? Because though the temple was destroyed, Jewish hope was not destroyed. We may have lost the building, but we still had the story and the memory and the light. And what had happened once in the days of the Maccabees could happen again, sadly. And it was those words, Sam mentioned them, Od lo avda tikvateinu, our hope is not destroyed, because part of the song of Hatikva that inspired Jews to return to Israel and rebuild the ancient state. So as you light the Chanukah candles this evening, remember this. The Jewish people kept hope alive, and hope kept the Jewish people alive. We are the voice, my dear friends, in the conversation of humankind. Carmel School, my dear friends, was opened in 1958 when the Jewish community was growing in the town of Bulawayo, and it felt that it was needed to have a school that had provided a Jewish and secular education. It began with 8 grade 1 Jewish children in a makeshift classroom and moved to the present site in 1960 with 5 teachers and 160 pupils in classes going up to grade 4. And by 1964, it was offering classes up to grade 7. While Carmel School maintains its Jewish ethos with Shabbat candle lighting and brochas, blessings, celebrated every Friday, and with all Jewish holidays and holy days observed, the school became fully integrated with children of all denominations in 1979. Today, sadly, there are no Jewish children in the school, but all aspects of Jewish ethos are still maintained. This has engendered an environment of respect for diversity of faith, culture, and ethnicity, strong ethics for tolerance and diversity being among Carmel's defining features. I have visited on a number of occasions the school on a Friday, and the little boys are wearing kippot, the girls light the Shabbat candles, and every Friday at the end of assembly, after the national anthem of Zimbabwe is sang, the national anthem of Israel, Hatikva, is sung. Before we close this evening by opening up for everybody to say hi to each other and wave to each other, etc., we are going to now be led in Hatikva by the Carmel School, which was sung 2 weeks ago Friday. I hope you find this inspirational.
Chag Sameach to everybody. Just wonderful to see you all.
Thank you, Anne.
Wonderful.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach to everybody.
Chag Sameach. See you soon. Thank you for organizing.
From Mauritius.
Chag Sameach.
Need to see you.
Good program.
Thank Chag Sameach to everyone. Tonight is a wonderful evening. I've left an issue, a message on the chat, and I said, and I really mean it, tonight has shown that we African Jews are one family, brothers,
Indeed.
sisters, and first cousins.
Yep.
The same family. Thank you all.
Indeed. Quite
Thank you.
true.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Chag Sameach.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Anna, Moshe. Well done. Thank you. And Chag Sameach to both of you. Lovely to see it all. It was inspiring. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Very good.